Well, this for me is an extremely exciting video. Today is unboxing day. Mega big box unboxing day. So it's always exciting, I think, as a photographer, especially if you're a gearhead like myself, to get a huge box from B&H. Of course, it's a little nerve-wracking too, because you're like, man, there's a lot of money in this box. So today, we're just gonna go through a quick, what gear did I just recently purchase? A little bit of insight as to why I purchased it, and kind of a transition that I'm gonna be making a little bit with my photography. So. All right, so let's see what we got in the box here. First thing is a bag. So this is actually a freebie that came along. I actually purchased all this from B&H, one of my go-to places for photography and equipment and technology. So, yeah, so one of the benefits to them is sometimes they have packages where for the same price that you're paying for your core kit that you're looking to purchase, you can actually get some freebies. So in this case, we have a free bag. This is actually a pretty nice one. It's actually by Peak Design. I like the color, I like the size. I have way too many camera bags. Maybe we'll do an entire video about camera bags in the future, but I definitely have way too many camera bags. But I'm sure this one will get some use despite that. Well, I kind of want to jump right to the big item that's in the box, but at the same time, it's at the bottom of the box. So I guess you guys are gonna have to wait for just a couple more seconds on the suspense of what this, the core piece of gear that prompted this purchase, but maybe there'll be a couple clues here along the way. So first of all, needed a new trigger for my lights. This is actually the Godox trigger. They actually have a brand new one of these Godox triggers, but I decided to go with this one, which is the older model, the X Pro N. N for Nikon, by the way. So there's your little hint of what's coming in the box here soon. But I wanted to stick with some of the controls that I was familiar with in my Fuji setup. So I decided to keep the same trigger and not upgrade to the new one. Of course, I could have upgraded both of them to the new version, but again, just stick with what I know, stick with what I know works, especially as I may be trying to learn a whole new camera system here and don't want to have to worry about learning too much at one time. Well, I didn't want to leave too much suspense and or have you too frustrated and having to wait for the big purchase that's in the box. So I went ahead and dug down in there, and we're gonna pull out the big item right now. Yep, I am now a Nikon shooter. Well, in reality, I actually was a Nikon shooter for quite a while. I used to have a D750. For some reason, I just never liked that camera. I don't know why. So many people love the D750, swear by it, still have it, still shoot it. I guess it's a great camera. I just never, me personally, I couldn't actually get into that camera. I actually, previous to that, had a D700. Absolutely loved the D700. Loved the colors, loved the magic of that sensor. If you know anything about the D700, you know that it had a sensor in it that wasn't used very much by Nikon before they pivoted to other sensors that were more readily available by Sony. So that D700, many people say, has not pixels, has pixels in it too, because it is digital. But it has pixie dust, and it has a special something to it that's special quality to it, and I definitely agree with that. I absolutely love that camera. I sold the camera, regretted selling the camera, so I bought the D750, hoped that that would fill that itch. It didn't, so I sold that. Actually, about a year or so ago, I rebought the D700, still have it to this day, and we'll be doing a video about that as well. But love the D700. Tempted to sell it because of this bad boy, but high probability that I will never get rid of my D700. It is a beast. It is extremely heavy, but what an incredible camera. So speaking of potentially heavy, but an incredible camera, here it is, folks. The Nikon Z8. A lot of decision-making and back and forth on which camera from Nikon I was gonna go with. I'll do a more in-depth video about this camera and an unboxing of the actual camera itself. But the short of it was, I wanted a camera that I can invest in now, that I would have for the long term, and that I could have for the next 4, 5, 6 years and not have any regrets about it. Also a camera that basically doesn't have any shortcomings from everything I've seen and read and heard from others. Very tempted by the Z7 II. I was very tempted by the relatively new Z6 III. Being that I'm a current Fuji shooter, I was very tempted by the ZF as well. But also, each one of those had drawbacks, especially coming from a Fuji X-H2, which is my primary camera. It's actually what I'm filming this on right now, is the X-H2. Camera I probably will not be getting rid of anytime soon, even though I'm kind of switching systems here, unless this blows me away so much that I absolutely can't resist and want to dive deeper into the Nikon ecosystem, meaning I'll have to maybe sell that for budgetary reasons. But love that X-H2, fantastic camera, checks a lot of boxes. Maybe we'll do a video about that as well. But one of the things I love about the X-H2 is 45 megapixels. I love the ability to crop in on that. I love the just the options that creates, whether you're doing landscape, whether you're not able to go into a particular scenario where you can take a longer lens with you, but you can crop into it. I actually use that a lot at Major League Baseball stadiums where there's limitations on what lenses you can take into the stadium. Maybe I'll make another whole video about that as well, because I've had some issues, more and more so it seems of late, with that. But it's nice to be able to even just take, like the lens I have on my Fuji right now is the 16-55, and I can still take that to a Major League Baseball stadium, heavily crop into that image, and still get something with a player at the, depending on where I'm sitting, of course, the player at the batter's box or a favorite player in the outfield or whatever kind of scenarios. And it just provides that flexibility. So that's why the Z7 II was actually very tempting to me. But at the same time, the Z6 III, the ZF, they have actually less megapixels, which, again, everything's not about megapixels depending upon what you're shooting. But in my scenario, for the stuff that I'd be shooting, that added flexibility, I really wanted that 45 megapixels. Honestly, if Nikon had made a camera that was in the form factor, the smaller size and weight of the Z6 III, or if the Z7 II wasn't as old, or the ZF form factor, those all might have been tempting with a 45 megapixel sensor in them. But so very excited about the Nikon Z8. Again, I think I'm going to do an entire video just on the things that were attractive to me about this camera in more detail, and we'll do an unboxing of this camera. So let's go back to the big box and see what else we got in the big box. So before we get back to some of the fun stuff, just figured I'd kind of do a lump of some of the variety of smalls that I also got in the kit. 3 batteries. I understand that the Z8 is still a battery hog, as many DSLRs and mirrorless cameras in particular are. So the camera actually comes with a battery, and I wanted to get a couple extra. And I mentioned earlier about the bundle that I got with B&H. The bundle with B&H actually came with another battery, so that was a nice plus with that as well. The bundle I also got from B&H included a card reader. I don't really need one, and this seems to be kind of a cheap, maybe knockoff kind of reader. So I have a reader already. I don't see myself using this one, but it's always good to have a backup, I guess, in case in a pinch you need one. So that'll probably get thrown into a storage box somewhere. Also in this bag here, I think are all my other smaller accessories that were either bundled in or that were add-on purchases. If I can, we might fast forward this part of the video. Hopefully that looked kind of cool and fast forward, because I imagine I was going to fast forward through that part. So I got a UV filter. This is for one of the lenses I picked up. I'm actually just now realizing that, no, I did actually get a second. I thought maybe I forgot to get a second UV filter. Guys, these are so cheap. They don't really degrade your photo quality at all. There's a misnomer about that out there. I'm clumsy. I bang stuff all the time. A lens hood certainly helps with that, but when I'm buying an expensive piece of glass, aka a lens, I want that added protection so I don't scratch the front element of the glass. I know there's videos out there of like scratching the heck out of the front of lenses and they still work fine. You can't tell the difference. Obviously it's gonna hurt resale value later on, but so I ended up getting a Hoya filter, And this one was actually bundled in. Chiaro, I've never heard of it before. So sometimes with those bundles, that's the thing you have to watch for, is the bundles that B&H and others do. It's kind of cheap stuff that they just got laying around, or that's an easy throw in for them. I honestly don't know if I'm going to use this filter. I may actually see if I have another one that's of higher quality, or might end up having to go back out and purchase another replacement for that. And then I got a couple of CF Express cards. These are Type B cards from SanDisk. SanDisk is my go-to. These are the Extreme Pros, which I really like. A little added security, a little bit more robust. Usually have faster read and write speeds, which are very important. Especially that write speed is extremely important. And so this is actually 256 gigabyte card. This was another thing that was bundled in with the bundle that I got. So this is actually a great bundle item. And then I picked up a 512. They actually had these on sale at B&H. It was still extremely expensive. I hope these cards come down, way down in price sometime soon. But this one was relatively, 130, 140-ish, which you just got to do. It's going to last a long time. It's 512 gigabytes. So there's a lot of space on here. But at the same time, still kind of pricey. So, but you get what you pay for. And then the last bundled item, which I'm pretty excited about actually, is the FTC2 adapter for the Nikon. This actually allows you to adapt your Nikon lenses to, or old Nikon lenses to your newer mirrorless bodies. So in this case, as I mentioned earlier, I do have a Nikon D700, and because of this FTZ2 adapter, I'll be able to adapt the two lenses that I currently have for Nikon. Those two lenses are the 50 millimeter, this is the F lenses of course, the 50 millimeter f1.4, which is a great little lens. This is obviously going to make it a little bit bigger, but it doesn't seem like it's that heavy, so it shouldn't add too much in the way of weight, probably more so length. And also I have the 85 millimeter f1.8, which I absolutely love that lens. The quality of it's amazing, and the bokeh on it's amazing, bokeh, whatever you want to say, is amazing on that lens. But I just don't use it that often. And it's probably more so because I don't use the D700 as much because of the size and weight of that camera. I just don't take it out as nearly as much as I should or want to. So I think this is going to be really handy. I'll be able to use the, basically get two more lenses without having to make any additional purchases that I'll be able to slap onto the Z8. And from everything I read, everything I've heard so far, the quality isn't really degraded hardly at all, if at all. Performance is great, focus is great. So looking forward to testing that out when I get a chance to use the new gear. Obviously, trying to decide, as you heard earlier, which camera body I was going to buy was the first decision, and was really a tough one. Again, deciding what were my needs, what were the things I shoot the most, what was I missing in my Fuji system that had me wanting to look at other systems. Watched a ton of videos, which is what I tend to do when I'm making any purchases, especially large camera gear purchases. Did a lot of YouTube watching. And really, that's what brought me to the Z8. I probably watched 4 times as many videos and had discussions on forums, including Facebook groups, of what lenses should I get. Needed a lens that was versatile. Yeah, a prime lens in the Z system would have been nice. I'll eventually get one or two, but really need something that was flexible, something that would meet my variety of needs, whether it was, I'm shooting an event, a 2-day event here coming up, so I needed something for that. Because I really would like to use the Nikon for that because I'm not sure about the lighting situation. So I'd like to be able to use that camera. And I have some portrait sessions and fashion sessions coming up soon. So I wanted a lens that was versatile enough for that. I'm going to some spring training baseball games, so ideally would like a lens I could use for that. And also tend to like to do things like cityscapes and landscapes when I'm traveling, which I'll be doing in the next week or so. And so I needed something that was versatile. So a zoom lens was the best option for me. And I was seriously considering the Nikon Z 24-120. From everything I read, it's a phenomenal lens. I'll probably own it someday. But it was bundled in. You saved some extra dollars if you got it with the Z8. Was an option for me. But what I ended up going with is this. And this is the Tamron 28-75. This is the f2.8 G2 version of the lens. From the things I was reading, and I don't know this 100% because I'm relatively new to Nikon, but from everything I was reading, the same lens for Nikon, which is the 28 to 75 f2.8 lens, is actually a rebranded or rebadged Tamron product. And from what I can gather is that it's probably the G1 version of the Tamron lens that Nikon adopted. So for whatever reason, probably because Tamron wanted to keep the G2 for themselves, they used the older technology. I'm sure it's still a great lens. The reviews were great on it, etc. But I decided to go this route because the price was basically the same, and I was able to get a lens that many say is optically better, and that the focus on it is better and faster as well. So I'll probably do an unboxing of this lens specifically and a review of this lens. Hopefully it's good, because this is going to be my workhorse lens on the Z8. This is the lens that's going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for me. This is a focal range I use a lot. I do think I'm going to miss having a little bit wider on the wide end of the lens. Again, my primary lens that I'm pretty much wearing out on my Fuji system is the 16 to 55 f2.8. And I do use that 16 millimeter end of it pretty often. And that equates to 24 millimeters on a full frame sensor. And this is it doesn't seem like a lot, but on the wide end, that 4 millimeters is actually quite a bit. And probably will see a difference, but it should just be 1 or 2 steps more backwards that should make up the difference. The question for me is, especially as I'm doing an event and doing groups, small groups at the event, will that be an obstacle where I can't back up any further and it becomes a hindrance? So I hope not, because this is my go-to lens for that, but we'll see how it goes. So that's the primary lens I bought for the system, and but there is one more lens in the box we'll pull out here in a second. So this is the second lens I decided to buy for the Nikon system. This time I did go with the Nikon lens, just because of what it is, and you can already see it's not like I'm a big surprise here, but also just a nice complement to the other lens. So this is the 70 to 180 f2.8. Seems like an odd focal range because the traditional lens is a 70 to 200 kind of in this focal range. I'm not really concerned about the extra 20 millimeter on the other side. If I was shooting sports, I might want that extra 20. Certainly when I go to spring training, I'll probably regret and kind of wish I had a little bit longer. Kind of my go-to in the Fuji system has been the 70 to 300. But again, I have that 45 megapixels of crop ability, so kind of a trade-off there. But the biggest reason I went with this lens is I think it's going to be more functional for me as far as having the f2.8 in this focal range as opposed to the 24 to 120, which is an f4 that I mentioned before. And then also, it is a good focal range for things like portrait, events. I don't really know a lot of the details of the event I'm doing. Hopefully I'll have those soon. Jason, I'll be calling you. But I have a feeling at the event there's going to be some situations where there's going to be individuals on a stage relatively far away, and I need something that has a little bit of reach to it. So I think this lens is really going to come in handy in that scenario. And then hopefully, even as I'm doing some stuff on the beach and some fashion work, I plan to pull this out. And it doesn't seem like it's really that heavy. I mean, there's a lot of boxing and padding and stuff here too, but it seems relatively manageable that I'll be able to, the days where I want to have 2 lenses as I'm just walking around and exploring, I should be able to throw this one in the camera bag along with the camera body and the other lens, and it's going to be heavy. Heavier than my Fuji system for sure. But I'm sure it'll be manageable. So that's the second lens I picked up for the new Z system. And the last thing in this big mega B&H box, no, I'm not sponsored by the way, not yet. Hey, but B&H, Nikon, Fujifilm, if you want to sponsor me, I'd be happy to. Maybe someday when the channel gets a little bit bigger. But anyway, this is the last lens I bought, and it's actually not a Nikon lens. This is actually a Fuji lens. And so you're maybe confused as far as why I ended up investing in a new Fuji lens when I'm kind of transitioning to Nikon. Partially because I'm still on the fence. I'm not 100% sold that I'm going to be fully transitioning to Nikon. I may actually use the Nikon system for my more professional / paid work, which I don't do a ton of paid work. I'm more of a hobbyist. But I may keep that system for that purpose. And then when I want something that's either for travel, lighter weight, something to just go out and do street photography with and have fun with, I might want to keep my Fujifilm system for those purposes. It's going to be really hard to get rid of my X-T3, for example. Absolutely love that camera. It's small, it's compact, it checks so many different boxes, so thin, even compared to my X-H2. But the biggest reason I got this lens was that I mentioned before, my workhorse lens for the Fujifilm system is the 16-55 f2.8. Incredible lens, incredibly sharp across the whole focal length. It's a workhorse as far as the focal length is concerned. The f2.8 is fantastic. The autofocus is pretty good for Fuji, but I wore it out. I'm actually using it right now, but it's also on a tripod and it's stationary. So I actually, the focus ring on it, the rubber on the focus ring has come off. So for half of a shoot, if I'm doing a 2-hour shoot, I feel like half of the time I'm just sliding that rubber ring back up to where it belongs so that I can actually use the lens. I'm sure it's a relatively cheap fix, but I still have to ship it away to Fujifilm, be without that lens, bring it back, which I may or may not do. I'm not sure yet, but it is a pain in the butt to be without that lens. So I basically just bought a replacement, and then the 16-55 will either become a backup or I'll sell it as is at some point in the future. I could have just got the same lens. I think there's some sales on it right now, at least at the time of this recording. There is a new version of it, which doesn't seem to be available right now. Fuji has a massive problem with availability of their gear and production issues. Not necessarily quality on the production issues, but issues with just having enough inventory to meet the demand that they have, which becomes very frustrating, frankly. And that's probably another whole video. But one of the reasons I decided to go with one of the bigger brands and thinking about Nikon was just availability of gear and a mentality that's not trying to create false scarcity in the marketplace, which is very, very annoying to me. So I went with the Tamron. This actually checks a few boxes. It's still f2.8. It's still pretty much the same wide angle. It's 17 instead of 16. That's not that big of a deal. Gets great reviews, has some great reviews on it. A lot of people said it's almost as good, if not as good as the existing lens, the 16-55. But the added benefit to this is I get an extra 15 millimeters on the long end. So I think that being a 70 millimeter on the long end, which I guess equates to about 105 in a full frame equivalency, is really going to be helpful, especially when I'm using it, if I use it on a portrait session. Again, how much am I going to be doing portrait with this camera going forward? I don't know. I think it's going to end up being my primary video camera and video setup that I might just leave permanently on the tripod here to remind me to sit in front of it and create more content. But that's why I went with the Tamron. Again, maybe I'll do an unboxing and a full review of this, but that's it. So with that, other than some packaging, that's all that's left in my Nikon, or my Nikon box. It felt like it was a Nikon box because it was predominantly Nikon gear. Obviously a pretty big investment for me as a hobbyist. Again, that's probably one of the things that gives hesitation when it comes to making such a big purchase, making a transition. I'm very invested in the Fujifilm system, 2 camera bodies, I don't even know, 6 or 8 lenses. I've been using them for quite a long time now, know their systems well, but sometimes it's just good to shake it up a little bit and try something new. And like I said, I'll probably end up doing a full unboxing and some more thoughts on that in the video about the Nikon Z8. So at least I have some stuff on the new shelf now. Just made another video for one of my other channels in regards to how long it took me to get this shelf built. So maybe I'll put a link to that in the description as well. But hopefully this helped you in some of your decision making. Feel free to ask some questions about the gear that you've seen in this video. If you are looking to make a transition, or if you've recently made a transition and have any suggestions as far as gear or my next purchases, feel free to make those in the comments below. But hopefully this provided a little bit of value. Please give it a thumbs up, and hopefully you subscribe so I can continue to grow this channel and continue to add value here to the community. More videos to come. Have an awesome day. I can't wait to start unboxing this stuff though, actually, and probably be back on YouTube tonight trying to figure out how the heck to use the Z8 and how to set up the menus and the customized buttons and all the fun stuff that camera has inside of it. So again, have a great day. See ya. Happy shooting.